Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for stopping by, and let's dive into our next section of content where we're going to be diving into the iOS firewall side of the house. Now, I'm going to go and I'm going to show you some documentation about some stuff first, and then we will dive later on into, in upcoming videos, some of the other topics that we're going to be diving into. So this isn't really going to be so much of a going through and configuring anything immediately. This will just be more of an introduction. As you can see to the right, that way, I've added quite a few nodes, and there's been some restructuring of the topology. And if you're following along with any of the videos and you've been reading through the comments, people have been asking me for the topology, and I haven't given anybody the topology. The reason why I haven't given anybody the topology is because, one, the topology is always changing, so people would have to be making modifications to it. Probably not a big deal for those that are wanting to follow along, but I'm using Eve Community, which means it's the free version, which means in order for me to export or close the lab out, all the nodes have to be shut off. At least that's what I've experienced. So once I'm done with this particular set of videos, we're going to be diving into upcoming stuff. So as you can see, I have a couple of additional nodes in here. I've got the WSA, I've got the Firepower Management Center, I've got FTD1 here, I've got FTD2 here, and I'm in the process of going through and playing around with that. Another thing that I have not shown yet is I purchased an ASA 5506. As a matter of fact, I will go ahead and bring over that virtual machine. That is what I'm using to connect into that with. So let me go ahead and log in real quick. This virtual machine has a console. I've added a USB adapter to this particular virtual machine. It's really easy to do. And then I just downloaded some drivers, and I was able to go through and plug in my USB to serial adapter, and now I have a console connection into that ASA. It is a show version. It is an ASA 5506. This is a physical box. It does have the Firepower Management Center, Firepower module installed in it. If we go here, show module SFR for SourceFire, I do have that installed, and it is running an older version of code. So I am in the process of labbing some stuff up as we're going through this. Through the iOS section is pretty much done from a documentation perspective for me testing it out. So this is why I'm going through the initial setup now for Firepower and for FTD, which for those of you that are following along, we're going through what would be the 206 exam. So it's not directly related to CCNP security, but it's pretty close from what we've talked about so far. It's I'm keeping it certification agnostic at the moment, but what I am doing is I'm taking those details from that particular exam and I'm just talking about them. I'm demoing them and stuff like that. And then what I'm doing in addition to that is I am now going what was the 207 exam. So when the CCNP security exams were originally developed for this particular iteration, the 207 exam was for the ASA CX module. And the CX module, I dealt with that back in like 2014. So it's been 4 or 5 years now since that box has been out. That particular module was replaced by the SourceFire module, so Firepower. So let me go ahead and turn on my gain here. I think my gain's a little high. Try that. Yeah, that's a little better. So, well, that's really high. Hold on, hang on, guys. I feel like I have an audio problem here. Let's try that. See if that's a little better. Oh yeah, there we go. I don't feel like I'm shouting anymore. Let me know if that's I'll test the audio. But at any rate, what's happening now is I will be testing out Firepower and Firepower Threat Defense and stuff like that, the WSA and the ESA, so the Web Security Appliance and the Email Security Appliance as we're going along, and stuff like that. There's not a ton of documentation that's out there for this. That's and I had to be from at least what I can see. So there hasn't been a ton of instructors that have gone out and demoed a bunch of these technologies and stuff like that. So I'll be doing my best to test this stuff out. I've done quite a bit with Firepower in the past through production networks. So I'll be taking what I've learned from that and bringing it up. I've actually already got it running. I've got FTD working. I'm actually SSH'd into a this node right here is an actual working FTD node right here. The FTD1. This is who I'm physically plugged into. So, or I'm sorry, I should say who I am physically wired into and SSH'd into. So it is legit. Everything that we're going to be showing you as we move forward here is going to be stuff that's going to be you can do. It's all working in Eve. It does take a little bit of wizardry to a degree to get it working. And if I run into problems with stuff, I will highlight those problems and then talk about them in the video. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up documentation, and I'm going to go to cisco.com/go. Let's just go cisco.com. I don't know the actual. So here we are on the web page. So we're going to say, yep, that's fine. So what we're going to actually do, close. So what we need to actually go do is navigate to the documentation so we can talk a little bit about the different software features that we're going to be testing. And as you can see here, I've shut a lot of stuff off because I'm adding a lot of resource intensive devices like Firepower, resource intensive. I will be adding ICE here in the future, and I will actually slim down the lab quite a bit. But I don't think I'm going to be doing ICE quite as quickly as I think that'll be the last exam, because I need to spend a lot more time on that particular platform than I have. I've only done some basic things with it, like doing some basic MAB and basic 802.1x. Anything advanced, I haven't done. So I really had to put the time and effort into. Firepower is really a transition from ASA over to FTD, and you'll see as we go through and do Firepower as the IPS. So just some clarification here. We have some IPS and we have Firepower Threat Defense. They're two different things. So the IPS is the next generation firewall feature that you add to an ASA as a service, kind of like the CX module. And that's what this is right here. When we talk about, that's what this particular feature set is here. So this is an ASA, the way that you would normally play with an ASA, like a 5515, a 5520. That hasn't changed. You add this module to the ASA and stuff like that. It's actually plugged in downstairs in my lab, in my rack, and I've got some cables plugged into it. One for management and then another one for data. And I'll be jumping into playing around with that a little bit later. But I still have some pretty heavy-duty training that I had to go through for that. I've only done some things with Firepower as a service on the ASA. I've got more experience on the FTD devices. So I'll be diving into probably FTD first and then Firepower, even though the transition should be Firepower as a service and then FTD, because it's a rebuild of the code. I've got more time on FTD, so I'll probably go transition to that first. And I'm also testing WSA. So let's go ahead and navigate to where is it that I want to go? I want to go to support, and we're going to go to, no, is it products and services? Yes, products and services. And then I'm going to go, where am I going to go here? I don't ever do this, go this way. Support and downloads. No, I actually don't know where to go here. Because normally I just click a button and it takes me where I want to go. So let's go here. Let's go and we'll do security. And let's see. Let's go next gen firewalls. Even though that's not what I'm talking about. I want to dive into, that's what I thought. So where I want to go is not where it's taking me. Imagine that. Products and services. Let's just go to the products and services page. So let's go to routers. This is a good first start. And here we are brought to, no, I do not want to know what's new, at least not right now. So we have a bunch of different platforms that are out there, obviously, that Cisco has. They've got the branch office, the ISR, and stuff like that. We're going to be looking at, do they have small business routers? No, that's not what I'm looking for. There is, they changed their site up a lot lately, and I'm not really digging it. Where am I looking to go? I want documentation. Hold on, let me jump over to Chrome, because I have it bookmarked in Chrome. Let's see. Let's go Cisco Docs. Let me go ahead and turn that down a little bit. Got some stuff going on in the background. Here is what I wanted to do. Okay, I don't know why it did that, but it did. So let's just go navigate here. This is where I want to go. So here I am. This is where I wanted to be. Okay, so there we go. So now I'm on the right track. I should have had this ready to go, but you know, it is what it is. So we're looking at iOS security for layer 2 and layer 3 devices. So when we talk about this, I am running a 15.6. So I would want to expand this, but I'm also working on iOS XE. So in this case here, that would be iOS XE 3S. So I'll open up both and I'll navigate individually. So it's going to go and click in here, and we want to go to configuration guides for this particular train. Click on that, it redirects us, and then it asks us, well, what specific configuration guide do you want to look at? Well, we're looking at data plane. We have been for a while. We'll be looking at data plane and some user services. So we come down here to secure connectivity. This is going to be all. I'll just expand all three of these just so you guys can see what this looks like. And we'll go there. So the very first tab here, this is all about VPNs. So let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. This is all about VPNs on iOS devices. So we will be going through this particular set of documentation pretty thoroughly. Not much is going to be untouched. So even this Easy VPN, we're going to be talking about that in the VPN course. But that's the VPN course, everything VPN, because it's such a large topic scope, it needs it. The next one we have here is going to be user services. So this is going to be users connecting to the device, using the device to authenticate through, like with the authentication proxy and so on. So we're going to be using some of that in this particular section because we talked about that from a how do you authenticate a user to an ASA. We talked about how to enable AAA and TACACS and stuff like that using ICE. We'll be doing that as well here. The other one is securing the data plane. This is where we're going to be spending a lot of time. So we have to cover all of this, and we're going to be doing all of this. So there's going to be a lot to cover and stuff like that. And then we have secure connectivity using zone-based firewall. This is a big topic area, which actually correlates to this one right here. This is 15.2 code. This is 15.3. This is 15.3. So it's really the same output, and it might seem intimidating with the amount of stuff that they're talking about with like zone-based firewalls and IPv6 support, then VRFs and high availability, then inter-chassis asymmetric support. Then we have it for WAS, and then, but really when you break it down, I'll go ahead and close this one out because this is pretty much the same thing. When you're breaking this out, what you're actually looking at, let me go ahead and move my mic a little out of the way. What you're actually looking at for in this particular, because zone-based firewall is a big topic. What you're actually looking at is these three right here are going to be the main focus. All this other stuff down here is just application support as the zone-based firewall has matured. So we will be taking a look at all of these top 5 options. So we'll be taking a look at zone-based firewalls, how to implement just how do you do zone to zone, in a single direction, bidirectional with NAT, 3-zone, and then how do you deal with it from the perspective of an application? How do you do a bunch of other stuff? So what we learned in the modular policy framework on the ASA, we're going to be translating a lot of that stuff over to zone-based firewall and iOS, and then we'll be taking a look at how that comes into play. So we'll be taking a look at a lot of that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and close that because I have all these pretty much laid out. So we're not going to be going in order, and we won't be doing IPS. IPS is a separate we'll cover it briefly to talk about what it does. But if we were to look at the IPS sensor, the IPS capability in iOS, there's not much. We'll just cover a high level of what it does and stuff like that. I don't believe I have the access to download any of the signatures or engines to put on the box. So we'll have to deal with that. Now, what we're going to be covering for the most part is this stuff and this stuff. And they might say, well, that's a lot to cover for one course. It is, but we're only going to be covering the stuff that's directly related to iOS. So meaning we're not going to be dealing with TrustSec here. TrustSec is not going to come into play. We'll talk about auth proxy. We're going to be diving into some AAA. We won't be dealing with NAC because that deals directly with 802.1x, which is a separate exam. We'll be talking about the radius configuration and how to enable radius on an iOS box, layer 2 and layer 3 switch. How can we enable TACACS so we can authenticate like we did with the ASA? There's some user security and stuff like that. There's some things like that. Now there is some other options that are available as well, like what they call auto secure, which I don't see. That might be in this one. Yeah, auto secure. So we'll be going through this one. This is more low level. So example would be you need to be able to do stuff directly on the box. So did the operating system pass its MD5 check, which is image verification. So every file that Cisco produces, they generate a SHA and MD5 hash for, and then when you download the operating system from the website and you go to load it up on the box and you get it installed, you can actually make sure that whatever hash value that is generated, that the Cisco generated, should match the one that your box sees. And we'll type in the verify command and stuff like that. We'll take a look at role-based access control. So a lot of this stuff we're going to be dealing with directly and how it comes into play and going from there. And then that's going to be securing user services. We'll be dealing with SSH and some of the advanced capabilities with that. The majority of this we're not touching. We're not going to be diving into this too deep because that's what the ICE exam is pretty much dedicated for, because of the fact that it relies so heavily on radius and stuff like that. So we'll be taking a look at those. Then the securing the data plane, we'll be taking a look at a lot of these. It looks a lot more daunting than it really is. So that's how that's going to come into play. Now, when we take a look at this from an iOS XE perspective, so we are running 3.17. We're going to come down here to configuration guides, and then we will expand, that's because I'm being too impatient. That's the NBAR protocol library, and I'm not going to be diving into NBAR. We will be using a lot of NBAR capabilities, which is the mapping the transport to the port. So TCP/23 would be Telnet, stuff like that. And then we will dive into the security section. So this will be this one and this one. One thing that you'll notice about the data plane here is there's significantly less topics to cover. Like we have zone-based firewall, URPF, flexible packet matching, cloud web security, and access lists. We don't have any. This would be data plane. So we don't have denial of service attack prevention. We don't have IPS. We don't have CBAC. CBAC is no longer there. So we'll be turning on a few devices like these two routers up here. We'll turn those back on because I should have enough resources available to run that. Yeah, I should be good there. So we'll turn on a couple of routers and the server. We'll turn this off because my goal is to do iOS specifically and then transition to iOS XE. So we'll take everything we tested here that's applicable and then test it over here on these guys so that we can actually go ahead and play around with them and stuff like that. So as you can see, I turned off a lot of the stuff that we tested in the previous videos, like the multiple context mode enabled ASAs with active stateful failover. That stuff's all been powered off and stuff like that. So the transparent firewall is still on. Eventually, these ASAs will get powered off as well, and then everything will go through the FTD devices once I get to that point. And in case you are wondering, the firepower, the ASA that's got the firepower module in it is not at all enabled in this lab. So that'll be a completely separate set of videos where I talk I talk strictly on that particular platform, where it's just the firepower as a service. Now there is another note in here that I can add, and I'll drag it out here just because of the fact that I'm a nice guy and I want you guys to be fully aware of what you're going to be getting yourselves into if you keep following along. So let's go ahead and bring that down just a touch because I'm all about simplicity. We're going to come down here to firepower 6, and then I'm going to go ahead and the IPS sensor. We can just type in IPS, and we can IPS 1. And we can go ahead and click on save. Now I'm not going to boot it up, but there will be a significant difference. Let me go ahead and bring this down and click on save. So I've added one of the things that I did is I've got 2 NICs that are physically connected, or that have been logically added to the virtual machine. The first NIC is dedicated for management, which is this guy right here. Wrong ESXi server. One moment. I'll bring that one up as well. Try to be as transparent as I can in case you guys are hoping to be like, well, how are you making all that work? It's not rocket science, and I swear to God, I don't do anything fancy. I just play around with stuff until it works. So here we have the ESXi server that I'm working on. This is this Eve VM right here. That's this node right here. So the IP addresses match up. 10.255.1.37, 10.255.1.37. So what I did is I just added a second NIC. And so what I did was I said, okay, the first one was going to be VM network. That connects into my regular home network, which is my 10.255.10 network. And then security management is the 10.255.1 network. So basically what I ended up doing there is that by adding the second NIC on this iNet cloud here connects me to the internet. In reality, both NICs connect me to the internet. There's 2 VLANs. One is VLAN 10, the other one is VLAN 1. VLAN 1 is for security management. So this guy right here, if I was to say edit, it connects to my management network. So management network is the 10.255.1 network. And I have this guy right here, which is management. This guy connects to Cloud 1. Cloud 1 happens to map. I had to go onto the server itself to figure out which NIC it mapped to, and I was able to look at the settings through the CLI and go, okay, well the NIC here, where is it? Right. Oh crap! I closed it. Okay, that wasn't what I was trying to do. Let me go ahead and log back in real quick. So once it loads again, if we expand this out, yes, that's fine. Thank you for evaluation mode. So here on Eve, if I click on here, I go to edit settings. What I was able to do is come in here to security management, and I was able to say EA5B, and then we have EA51. So I was able to go, oh, security management. So this one right here, actually I'm incorrect. This is my management or my internet connectivity link, and security management is for the management network down here. So this is VM network right here. This one right here is security management, and I'm using that. And the reason why I'm using that is these are all web UI connections, which means that they are pretty slow if I'm going through a virtual device. The virtual device backplane isn't there. So and I'm not looking for, I'm looking for speed when I'm labbing to a degree. I don't want it taking 5 minutes for me to transition between two different pages in a web UI. From a teaching perspective, that's gonna be like, oh, okay, cue in the Jeopardy theme music. It's just not gonna go quick. So I did that. I added it. It does work. As a matter of fact, if I pull up this guy, and let me go ahead and do this real quick. I have to close something out because there's some stuff I cannot show you. I have this. So right here, this web UI, this 10.255.10.201 is the FMC right here. So this FMC, this Firepower pop-up right here, that's it. The web security appliance that you see right there, that is him. That's this UI right here. So I have it all working, and I had to get access to it. That's how I'm doing it. So we have that capability in place and running. So that's going to be what we're going to do. And you might, so once we get through all of the iOS section, which is going to take a little bit to do, obviously, but I'm trying to be thorough when I do it as well. So that's some of the capabilities that are out there. What we're going to be doing in the meantime, I've had a couple questions come across and be like, well, for your MPLS network here, how are you going to, that doesn't look very MPLS-like. And it really is more to test things like get VPN and stuff like that. I have enough iOS routers here to test things like AnyConnect and SSL VPN. Those will be tested in the VPN section. So the VPN section is going to be broken up into two major sections. We're going to have the remote access and the site-to-site. So when we talk about site-to-site, that's going to be broken down into two other major sections, IPv1 and IPv2. IPv1 obviously is going to be your older phase 1 option, and that's going to be all the different capabilities. So that's going to be your straight-up vanilla crypto map enabled VPN, and then it's going to go and progress into all the different capabilities. Then we're going to go to IP2, and then we're talking about Flex VPN and how that applies to DMVPN and Get VPN, stuff like that. Because my goal, if you haven't noticed so far with my flow of the videos, is ultimately CCIE, right? I'm planning on using the momentum that I have to get ready for the CCIE lab exam for security. So by the time I'm done going through all the CCNP material, I've got a really, really good lead on the CCIE stuff. There's only going to be a handful of things like, for an example, would be like Stealth Watch or PX Grid or Threat Grid or AMP. A lot of these advanced capabilities that don't necessarily have a home in CCNP, but they're technologies that can still be integrated. I haven't spent any time on them yet. Another one would be TrustSec. I haven't tested that out. But these are all things that I plan on doing as I'm going along. I haven't learned them yet, but they're coming. So that's pretty much where I am at from this perspective and how I'm going to go about doing it. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve as we're going along and all that good stuff. So the topology will probably stay pretty close to this. I might make some other modifications depending on what's going on. That's why I haven't given the topology to anybody, because it's changing pretty constantly. I'm having to power devices off. The community version does not allow you to hot add interfaces, at least that I'm aware of. Yeah, because I can click on this device here and I can physically move it, but I can't drag another connection to it. Like I can bring this guy here to here, but if I try to connect it, it's not going to work. So, as a matter of fact, I'm going to have to resynchronize the topology, so that goes away. But that's pretty much what I have to do. So if I wanted to add FTD2 and I wanted to add IPS1 and actually test them out, I'd actually have to start powering off switches in order for them to connect into those switches so that they'd be able to communicate. I could power them on and get them installed, like to get them the initial setup done on the FTD device. But if I wanted to actually leverage them from a data plane perspective, I'd actually have to wire them into the switches and this switch is pretty much tapped out on its port capacity. So I'd have to actually add, and I wouldn't probably do that. I would probably just take this connection right here. I would probably just power this guy down and then run connections from this guy and this guy down to it, and then I would just make sure whatever type of trunking that I need to enable, I would do that there. That's pretty much it. Again, I have a lot of, in this particular specific exam, I decided not to jump into VPN right away after the iOS or the Firewall course because it made more sense from a logical flow to go from learning the ASA at the core foundation and iOS firewall foundation levels, then move up to the next gen firewall capability. Once I have all that laid out, I should be rock solid on WSA, ESA, which I needed to learn anyway because I hadn't covered them yet. Dive into cloud web security, and then dive into FTD and firepower. Get those laid out. A really good deep dive into those particular platforms. Then circle back. Then do VPN. Then do ICE. Because from what I've seen and what I've heard about ICE is a lot of the stuff that we'll be deploying anyway will integrate with ICE, and it'll be a matter of going through and configuring that type of stuff. So I should, hypothetically speaking, be able to connect an ICE node in here somewhere and be able to play around with those technologies. That is my goal. Now, one of the things that I probably will end up doing, and I've done this in the past to test it out, is ICE will be brought in like these nodes are, because I want the high-speed connection to it, because of the fact that it's a lot of processing and I need the higher speed network in order to achieve that. But I will probably run another link from this port or from this cloud to a switch that will allow me to allow the communication from a routed perspective to talk to the switch, the firewall, and the router, so that the router, switch, and firewall can talk to the ICE node directly, and then if I need to, I can even set up a VPN logically in ICE to connect out to that type of stuff. So that's basically how I'm approaching it and stuff like that. So we'll see how that plays out. Again, this is a kind of a fluid design. As I've been learning new stuff, I've been adding more capabilities to it and powering stuff off and playing around with it. But that's learning, right? You learn how it all comes together. And one thing that I learned a long time ago when I started diving into CCIE is just learning the technologies alone. You start to kind of get an idea of how they kind of glue together. And then as you start diving into it, an example would be I want to be able to, an R11 here is acting as a node on this network. As a matter of fact, I need to spin up router 11 here. Let me go ahead and bring him over. I need to add him in because he actually is acting as a legit node on this network. So what I would end up doing is I'd come in here and I would say, okay, I have this connection here, and R11 connects to ASAP2, which connects to switch 2. So what I would probably end up doing is I would do, I'm going to be doing VRF aware zone-based firewall eventually. That's going to be one of the topics that I cover. You guys will be seeing that here very, very soon. So R9 is currently the, go ahead and add him in too, because I need to, that's one of the other devices I need to start teaching on. Why is he not popping up? Oh, that's because it actually did, but it was hiding. We go ahead and rename this to be R9. And do the same thing for R10. There it goes. And I'll go ahead and do that real quick. So basically what's going to end up happening as we're going along here and getting all this stuff set up is I will more than likely take a situation where I have a VRF aware configuration to where, let's say for instance, I wanted the VRF to provide me connectivity out to the internet, but in the user cloud or the user VRF would be, I should say the default routing table would have the internet connection. The VRF would point me out over as an overlay. So we'll talk about that as it comes into play because it's been a little while since I've demoed it. But you have the underlay and you have the overlay where we wouldn't see the connectivity between R9 and R11. It would be me going out and saying, you know what, here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up a GRE tunnel between these two sites so that PC3 can ping server 3, and then we can start doing some other stuff. Like if I wanted to open up a web connection to SRv3, I could, and I'm going to start filtering. So the idea would be to say, okay, now that we've done the firewall features, we want to take that a step further and start locking stuff down. What are the other options that we have? You know, I want to start interacting with the different locations. I'm probably going to take this MPLS site and add some to it because the fact that I want to be able to play around with that. And there was another question that was asked, am I planning on doing the configuration for the MPLS VPN network itself, where I set up, you know, OSPF and VRFs and LDP? Yes, there will be a complete video walkthrough of how to set all this stuff up and stuff like that. So it's involved. It does take some time. So I appreciate everybody's patience with this, but I want to do it right. I don't want to just kind of fly by the seat of my pants and be figuring it out as I'm doing it. I want it to go well. So until next time, guys, thanks so much for stopping by. And until next time, take it easy. Later, guys.